If we ban you from ever teaching publicly again, will you comply?
I've also answered that previously as well.
That's how you answer the Kohen HaGadol?
What you are about to hear may be the most emotionally heavy update we have ever received from The Chosen. And I want you to sit with that for a moment before we go any further, because I am not saying it for dramatic effect. I am saying it because the new crucifixion footage and the behind-the-scenes details that have begun slipping through from the Season 6 production are unlike anything this show has released before. And the people who have seen even the smallest fragments of what is being filmed are not describing it the way you describe a television production. They are describing it the way you describe something sacred and terrible and almost too painful to look at directly. Season 6 was always going to be the season that changed everything. From the very first episode of this series, every miracle, every teaching, every quiet moment between Jesus and his disciples, every act of healing, and every demonstration of grace, all of it has been walking toward this. The arrest, the trials, the scourging, the cross, the darkest hours of the darkest day in recorded history. And now that production has moved into those hours, the footage and the descriptions coming out are confirming what Dallas Jenkins and Jonathan Rumi and Elizabeth Tabish have been trying to prepare us for. This is not going to be sanitized. This is not going to be softened or managed or made comfortable for audiences who would prefer not to feel the full weight of what actually happened. The Chosen Season 6 is going all the way. And the footage that has begun emerging tells you everything about how seriously this entire cast and crew are taking what they have been entrusted to portray. I will tell you right now, looking at what I have seen from these production updates, that when this season finally releases, we are not going to be ready. Not emotionally, not spiritually, not in any of the ways we typically prepare ourselves to watch something difficult. This footage is already hitting hard before the season has even aired. And what is coming is only going to go deeper. Stay with me because every detail I am about to share with you matters. Let me start by telling you something that came from people who were actually present during the filming of these early Season 6 episodes, because eyewitness accounts of what the atmosphere on set feels like are telling us something about what this season is doing that official announcements and promotional material simply cannot communicate with the same honesty. The people who were there, extras and background actors and crew members who were present for the filming of the arrest and trial and scourging sequences, are not describing a film set. They are describing an environment that felt fundamentally different from anything they had experienced before. Colder, quieter, more serious. Like everyone present understood on some level that they were not simply making television, but participating in the reenactment of something that actually happened to a real person. And that the weight of that reality had settled into the air around the production in a way that nobody could quite shake. The silence between takes is the detail that keeps appearing in every description from people who were present. Not the busy, productive silence of a crew moving efficiently from one setup to the next. The specific kind of silence that settles when people are in the presence of something that demands reverence and cannot be processed through the normal mechanisms of professional distance. Multiple accounts describe this quality of silence persisting even when the cameras were not rolling, even during breaks, even in moments that would normally be filled with the ordinary conversational background noise of any professional production. Something about what was being filmed was making normal behavior feel inappropriate in ways that even people who had no personal spiritual connection to the material could apparently feel. Jonathan Rumi's physical preparation for this season is visible in every unofficial image and description that has come out of the production, and it is one of the most affecting things about the behind-the-scenes material that has emerged. He is thinner, quieter. There is something in the quality of his presence in these images that goes beyond the physical changes of deliberate weight loss and the cosmetic work of production makeup. He looks like a man who has been carrying something heavy for a very long time and who is now standing at the edge of the moment when he will finally have to set it down, and the setting down is going to cost him something significant. He has spoken publicly about the emotional and spiritual preparation he undertakes for this role, and it is clear from what we are seeing in these production images that the preparation for these specific scenes has gone deeper than anything the previous seasons required of him. There was one image in particular that stopped me completely when I first encountered it. Jonathan, in partial makeup, his clothing marked with small irregular patches of red that were not dramatic or theatrical in their presentation. They were quiet, almost accidental in appearance, the kind of detail that makes something feel more real rather than less, because the absence of theatrical excess communicates authenticity in a way that nothing deliberately constructed for emotional impact could. Those small marks on his clothing told me more about what this season is prepared to show us than any official announcement has communicated. They told me that the people making this are not interested in approximating the suffering of those hours. They are interested in representing it honestly, and the honesty of what they are creating is already visible in details this small. The atmosphere of the trial sequences is being described with particular consistency by people who have seen the material, and what they are describing aligns precisely with what the written accounts of those proceedings convey. The chaos of a legal process being conducted at speed in the middle of the night by people who are simultaneously desperate for legitimacy and aware that they have none. The specific quality of injustice that comes from watching an innocent person stand in silence while the people around him scramble to construct a case against him from testimony that cannot even maintain its own internal consistency. The show is not letting the audience observe these proceedings from a comfortable analytical distance. It is placing the viewer inside the emotional reality of what it felt like to be present in that room, and the footage suggests they are achieving that in ways that make the experience genuinely difficult, rather than simply dramatically engaging. What we are seeing from these production updates is only the beginning of what Season 6 is building toward. The scourging has not yet fully landed in the footage that has emerged. The cross itself has not yet been shown with Jonathan on it, and if what has already come out is this heavy, the honest question every viewer of this show needs to sit with is whether they are genuinely prepared for what is still coming. I do not think most of us are. Now let's talk about what the behind-the-scenes material is showing us about the disciples in these early Season 6 episodes, because this is the dimension of the production updates that I think is landing hardest on people who have followed this show from its beginning, and who have spent years building real emotional connections to these characters. The suffering of Jesus in these final hours is the theological and narrative center of everything Season 6 is doing. But the emotional experience of watching those hours is going to be mediated to a significant degree through the people who loved him, and who are now having to watch something they cannot stop or understand or fully accept. And what the behind-the-scenes footage is already showing us about how the Chosen is handling their devastation is deeply affecting in ways I was not fully prepared for. Peter is the character whose storyline in these production updates is producing the most immediate emotional response. And I think that is because his particular failure in these hours is the one that most of us understand on the most personal level. He is not Judas, whose betrayal carried a specific, deliberate quality that places it in a different category from ordinary human weakness. Peter's failure is the failure of a man who genuinely loves someone, and who in the moment of maximum pressure discovers that his love, as real and as deep as it is not yet strong enough to overcome his fear. We have watched Peter across 5 seasons become someone whose courage and whose commitment seem to grow alongside his faith. And the behind-the-scenes material showing him hooded and frightened and following at a distance as Jesus is moved from one location to another is communicating the specific quality of his internal conflict with a precision that suggests the show is handling this moment with the full seriousness it deserves. Judas is being shown in the production footage in a state of visible deterioration that speaks to the emotional trajectory his character has been on since the arrest. And watching it even in these unofficial glimpses is genuinely uncomfortable, in a way that reflects how effectively this show has built him across multiple seasons as someone the audience has understood, and in some ways sympathized with, even while watching him move toward the worst choice in the narrative. He looks devastated in every image that has emerged from this section of the production. Not dramatically devastated in the way that serves narrative clarity, devastated in the way that real people look when they understand with absolute certainty that they have done something irreversible, and that the understanding has arrived too late to matter. There is talk among fans about additional scenes that may show Judas attempting to reach out to the disciples or confront Peter, And while those moments are not in the scriptural record, they fit entirely within The Chosen's approach to using character-driven dramatization to illuminate the emotional reality that the written accounts document in outline. John appears in the production material in ways that capture the specific quality of his grief, which is different from Peter's and different from Judas's, in ways that reflect the different relationship each of these people had to what is happening. John is not running away. He is not consumed by the guilt of betrayal. He is staying as close as he can while understanding that staying cannot actually do anything. There is a helplessness in the images that show him that is one of the most affecting things in all of the behind-the-scenes material that has emerged, because helplessness in the face of something terrible happening to someone you love is an experience that most human beings understand from their own lives in ways that connect the biblical narrative to personal emotional reality with devastating directness. The women present in these sequences are carrying a specific quality of faithful witness that the production footage captures with real power. Mary, the mother of Jesus, is shown carrying something that goes beyond even the grief of watching a child suffer, which is itself the most extreme form of parental pain imaginable. She has known since Simeon's prophecy in the temple that this day was coming. The sword he described has been approaching her entire adult life, and in these production images, you can see a woman who has been bracing for this moment for decades, finally standing inside it, and discovering that decades of anticipation do not actually prepare a mother's heart for the reality of what she is witnessing. Mary Magdalene alongside her is showing a quality of unwavering presence that contrasts with the frightened, scattered, hiding quality of most of the male disciples in these scenes. And the production footage uses that contrast to say something true about faithfulness that the scriptural accounts preserve, but that the show is representing with a physical and emotional concreteness that makes it land differently than reading about it. The disciples are falling apart in real time in this production footage, and knowing what we know about each of them from 5 seasons of investment in their stories makes watching that falling apart hurt in ways that a straightforward biblical account of these events cannot fully access. What is coming when the full scourging and crucifixion sequences are finally in our hands is going to take every ounce of emotional preparation we have. And based on what these behind-the-scenes details are already doing to people who care about this show and these characters, I do not think any of us will make it through without being changed by it. The scourging is the moment I have been most concerned about discussing, not because there is no way to address it, but because the behind-the-scenes material that has emerged from this section of the production is the most genuinely difficult content in everything that has come out from Season 6 so far. And I want to be clear about what I mean by difficult, because it is not the difficulty of graphic violence or of imagery designed to disturb through shock or excess. It is the difficulty of footage that captures the emotional and physical weight of what is being portrayed with such honesty that the normal protective distance between viewer and content simply fails to hold. This is not something you can observe with detachment. These production images are designed to make you feel the reality of what you are seeing, and they succeed. The physical preparation that has gone into representing the scourging honestly is visible in every image and description that has come out of this section of the production. The makeup and prosthetic work is being described by people who have seen it as genuinely confronting in its specificity, not because it is excessive, but because it is accurate in ways that most screen representations of these events have chosen to pull back from. The Chosen has clearly made a deliberate creative and theological choice that representing the scourging with the level of honesty that the moment demands serves the story and serves the audience better than a softened approximation would. And everything in the production material supports the conclusion that they are following through on that choice with complete commitment. Jonathan Rumi's presence in the scourging-related footage is described by everyone who has seen any part of it in terms that go beyond observation of a performance. There is something happening in his portrayal that people are finding difficult to articulate in purely technical language. It does not look like acting in the way that most discussions of acting performance describe it. It looks like inhabiting, like a man who has spent months of preparation getting to a place where the boundary between